evening. Thanks for the presentation. It was very good. My name is Wayne Stovall. I'm president of Shambhala Windfields, which actually is a renewable energy investment fund company. I'd like to take you back, if I could, to the comments you made in Germany, in which you said that anyone who produces power is guaranteed access to the grid. And in Nova Scotia, one of our major problems is the inadequacy of the transmission and distribution system. And in fact, many of the companies trying to develop wind farms in Nova Scotia are being required in the presentation of their proposal to Nova Scotia Power to pay for the transmission grid upgrades to allow them to bring their electricity from their farms and their production facilities to the grid system. In Germany, when this law was passed, I would presume that there must have been some issues related to the capacity of the grid to deal with potentially all of this new power. And you said if anybody phones up and said, I've got power to put on the grid, they say, okay, we're going to put in a line and that sort of thing. Did the government have any program in place or any incentives, whatever one might call it, for the utilities to assist them in upgrading, because there must have been some capital cost? Could you comment on that aspect?
Absolutely. As I mentioned, the electric utilities are not, they call this ownership unbundled, but they're technically unbundled. So the same owner, E.ON AG, still holds a generation arm, a transmission arm, and a couple of regional distribution arms. So these subsidiaries of the same holding company are not supposed to talk to each other. So the transmission arm is the one arm that is regulated by the Bundesnetzagentur, by a specific agency that regulates telecommunications, gas grids, and electric grids. And they have to submit their investment plans to that agency, and the agency approves the wheeling and transmission fees that they are charging. So the system actually on my bill is even more transparent than what I showed, because in my bill, the blue bar in that cost diagram that I mentioned is also subdivided into transmission as wheeling fees and other fees. So if a transmission company has to invest into upgrading their electricity grid in order to accommodate more wind, they can submit this to the regulator and get higher tariffs approved for the wheeling. Nevertheless, the regulator in the last years has consistently downgraded their fees because they were claiming too many expenses and charging too high fees. But this is the one sector where the regulator really works in order to increase transparency and also make it possible that these grid companies invest in upgrading their grids and still get reimbursed by the consumer. And obviously, since the tariffs go down rather than up, it's not making the system more expensive so far, because charging still obviously a little too much. Nevertheless, this is the one issue in which the law foresees that, for example, and this affects mainly wind facilities, that wind power production can be curtailed. So if the grid operator can prove that if they take the output of that one wind farm, it would endanger grid stability because the wires would glow too red hot, basically. And then the grid operator calls the wind farm operator and tells him to please shut down because of grid stability. That's the one issue that the law allows for. And but it's a real issue. Some wind farms in the north and in the most densely populated by wind farms area are losing up to 10% of their profits through that loss through that curtailment in times when they cannot feed into the grid. Obviously, everybody is aware of that because the grid operators have to publish these incidents on the website, so there is public transparency of these incidents. And everybody can track how much money are these wind farms really losing, and is there a need to refurbish the grid, and how fast does the utility take action. So I'm sure if the utility doesn't take action fast enough, the wind farm operators as well as their associations will take them to court and say, hey, come on, you have to do something about that. In addition, in the most recent review of that law, it is included that the operator has to reimburse the wind farm for that loss of revenue. So they still have to pay for these kilowatt hours even if they don't take it. And these are kilowatt hours that they cannot sell, obviously, because they don't have it, right? So they will try to put that on top of the grid charges, and then they will get in trouble with the regulator. So I wonder how that is going to play out. But the incentives to reinforce the grid are rather strong for this kind of provision.
Hi, my name is Peggy Cameron, and I just had a comment on capacity for the grid. I think one of the problems in Nova Scotia is that wind is being added on to top off, maybe, or to cut out the most expensive production. So maybe when we're using more energy, then we're replacing expensive energy. And I don't really think that there's a direct intention at this point to back off the amount of coal production, because coal is cheaper because we don't pay the cost of pollution. And I had two questions. Just I was wondering if you could just speak about one of the things we're hearing about in Nova Scotia often is with renewable energy, we need to have sort of like a dance partner for the backup. And we've had a Minister of Energy talk about, well, the wind doesn't blow all the time, so what do you do then? So that's one question. How do you deal with renewable energy if it's not always there? And then the second question is if you could just speak about another thing related to the grid, as we hear that if you're adding renewable energy, then you can create destabilization of the grid, or you're creating instabilities in the grid. And maybe talk a little bit about distributed energy compared to vertically integrated centralized energy production.
Can you give me the second question again?
The second question was about the destabilization of the grid through interconnection, and the first question was balancing renewables if they're not always available.
Well, the first one is easier, but the second one is a lot of technical detail. I'm not sure you really want to know. Okay,
Give me brief.
Actually, we still have enough, traditional power installations to cover our energy needs. Germany is a net exporter of electricity because we have this neighbor, France, who likes nuclear power, and sometimes they need a little help. So we produce more electricity than we use domestically. So we don't have this issue of, asking ourselves, do we still have enough? Can we rely on the wind? Power system planners like to use the concept of capacity credit or firm capacity. And wind gives you very little of that. But it helps to increase the figures of firm capacity that you get out of a megawatt of wind capacity. If you have a large area over which you have an energy grid that can then balance out. Because, for example, we have an electricity grid that expands all over continental Europe, basically from Poland to Spain and from Finland to Italy. And all of us are connected in this grid. And there are wind farms in Spain and in Finland and in Italy and in Germany. But the wind doesn't blow everywhere at the same time and at the same speed. So this being connected actually serves to balance out these fluctuations over the whole grid. So it helps to be connected. That's the lesson from that. The second issue there is, I once did a talk and I figured out there are 4 different ways how wind can be considered affecting grid stability. And some of them are very technical and can be ruled out by just formulating grid codes in the proper way. Others can be mitigated through either financial products or processes that are developed, or at very large amounts of wind energy in the grid, which we haven't reached, which we will reach maybe in 2015. There is a situation is possible where you produce more electricity than you use, and that is the situation. But as I said, we are very far away from that situation. When you need to use storage facilities, or you actually need to curtail it because you don't need it anymore. But these are very rare situations and not relevant at current levels of wind integration in Germany. I guess that was the short version of this complicated